two things do go together, focus and resilience, but they're two different things. Different in terms of objectives and what it means to an individual. Focus is really about being sharpshooting and being focused in terms of goals, but also at the same time knowing what's important in terms of yourself and in terms of the business as well. Resilience for me, it's more about dealing with things, being in a position where you can deal with negativities, failure, dealing with different situations, and how you handle a situation. It's your ability to react and adapt to a particular situation. I mean, there's positives to it, and there's also obviously a downside to it as well. There's individuals who talk about being passionate about a subject, but they're defending that topic or that point, and it becomes quite obvious that it becomes a position statement for them, and it becomes more about it becomes very personal. And from my perspective, yes, there's an element of business is personal, but when you're not thinking objectively, when you're not really thinking in terms of the contra side to it, the other side to it, then I think there's a negativity there. But with the right frame of mind in terms of focusing, you're focusing on a goal, you're focusing on a mission and a purpose, and you understand what your sort of purpose is, then that's definitely a positive thing. If you know where you want to get to, then you're going to strive to get there. Otherwise, they say any road will get you, and you'll go from one to another. One of the things that I will say generally to entrepreneurs is they have a habit generally, and I'll put myself in that camp as well, of losing attention and moving on to something else and something else and something else. And I think that's something that we need to, as entrepreneurs, put the brakes on and be more aware of the fact that at times you're losing attention at the point that the business is probably scaling or has the scalability, and your focus should be maybe on that business to take it to the next level and grow that, rather than thinking about creating something new. And I think that's a sort of a larger conversation, but it's something that I often talk to entrepreneurs about. Often when businesses diversify, and the diversification is as a result of either mitigating risk or looking for new opportunities, there's not enough structure in terms of that diversification, and the reason for doing it often is moving away from a core problem. So what you find is there may be a problem that a business has, there may be a difficulty that a business has, and they think, actually, I can't be putting all my eggs in one basket. Potentially we need to add an element of diversification in there. It'll be better for us if we sort of diversify in terms of, it could be a vertical diversification in terms of moving into a different area. It could be regional, geographical. It could be into a different field. But it's often done on the back of some negativity, rather than strategically thinking in terms of from a growth perspective. So I think sometimes it's better to go back to the core, the real reasons why you're looking at it, and reconsider some of the options. And it's not always the best option in terms of diversifying or moving on to a different area. I think most businesses, and again including ourselves, look at diversification or doing other things as a way of actually growing, and it's sometimes the main thing, as you said, may not be the main thing because of changes that are happening globally, nationally, and in terms of habits as well. So if sometimes it's better to make smaller changes and incremental changes rather than big change in terms of a different area, and it's those small improvements. So I always look at, wherever possible, being better rather than looking to do different things in terms of areas. So if we can improve that and get more from what we're doing, more of a market share, more in terms of customers, doing more with those, then that's our focus now. But we've gone on that journey where we're, rather than focusing in terms of improving and chipping in and looking at the incremental increases and looking at where the sort of changes we can make within the business to get better. That could be margin, that could be sort of product service, that could be whatever, a number of things. We look at doing other things, and sometimes we get better return on investment by focusing on the business, so the business remains competitive and remains in a position where it grows. And that's something that again I've learned and I've shared with others as well. From a personal perspective, I'm a big believer in mentorship. I'm a big believer in having an accountability partner. In business, in bigger business, they talk about governance and governors or non-executive directors. And what you find is that sometimes those checks and balances are done as a result of questioning, are done in terms of a perspective of remaining focused on the purpose of the business. And often we all need reminders, and whether that's having a coach as an accountability partner, or sometimes going back to your basics in terms of your business plan or your structure or your need. It's always good to sort of be reminded of that, however that is, because as I said, we sometimes, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we can lose a bit of focus. We start looking at other things, and we can easily get distracted as well. So I think it's important, whichever mechanism it is, whether it's a coach or an accountability partner or the mechanism of having non-executive or governors. From our perspective, the governor's job is our non-executive team, and our chair is to keep me in balance and really get me focused on what I need to be doing. I think resilience is a frame of mind. It's a way we think as individuals. It's not necessarily somebody who's an entrepreneur. They're a resilient person. What you find is entrepreneurs sometimes are in a weaker position and have all these fears, and it's not about necessarily just being in a position of dealing with something, but it's also how our attitude is to react to something. And often we have fear, sometimes fear of missing out, sometimes just the fear of something is going to happen, and what we do is we get into a panic and our behavior changes. We've not had a knockback as yet, but the mind chatter that's happening and the way the mind is reacting, then influences our decisions, influences how we are with other people, influences really how we move the business forward or not to move the business forward. So it's all these knock-on effects that you have. So it's very similar to in terms of sport. It's as much as a mind game that it is actually physical or doing things as well. It's there's a lot up here that can affect it, and it's actually what you put in there and what you sort of keep out and how you deal with it, and it's that processing of that. For me, that's what I would say. Not just how you react to something that's happened to you, but how you sort of deal with things going forward. there's often a fine line in a lot of these things, and what I find is that there's people that I've spoken with and I've met who I would say are delusional in their approach. They tell themselves so many times of a certain thing, and it's very hard for them to see a different perspective, to even sort of consider anything else. And I've sort of felt and noticed that they've sold it to themselves so many times, and that they actually believe in it. That's a dangerous thing. And again, it's having that balance and having that perspective of a position is paramount. There's a danger in having anything like this out of balance and out of sync. And I think, as I said, there's a fine line of being passionate about something, but then being realistic about something and having a perspective of really having that sort of framework and focus. And I think this is something that happens quite often. We've seen it on sort of TV shows as well. The Apprentice and various others, and it's an approach that often is sold as a positive thing, but there is a negative side to it. There is another side to it. At times, I would say, I have lost focus. At times, I have found it difficult as well in terms of dealing with a particular situation. But it's really with the experience of life and with the experience of actually of having to have dealt with these situations before you get better at it. So what you find is that you're able to, with your thought processes, being able to sort of get out of the kitchen, deal, in a saying, deal, reflect on it, being in a position to sometimes sleep on it, think about it. You'd be in a better position to deal with the obstacles. In terms of focus, I like to think myself in terms of a quite a driven person, which is slightly different to maybe a focused person. Driven in terms of the overall purpose that I'm looking to do. But what I'd like to do is really have people who are more specialist in some aspects of it and who can focus on maybe some of the finer detail, and that happens as a result of your own growth and being more emotionally savvy and emotionally sort of more aware. You develop these sort of traits and skill sets. Resilience is anybody, I think, in terms of dealing with a particular situation and how you frame things and so forth. And a lot of this is mind games up there, and how you actually, and what you put in or what you take out is important. And exactly the same as our eating habits. We need to be very clear the fact that if the people around you are negative, if the people around you of a particular frame of mind, there's no doubt that's going to affect you as well. So having the right people around you is important. It will help you with regard to being more resilient. It will help you in terms of being more focused. And we are, and I'm of the opinion that nobody is self-made. We are a combination of a number of factors, and having that right team, people around you is the thing that you can control and what you should be focusing on.